Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and thank you kindly for joining us on Real Talk with Keith Smith. An absolute pleasure to connect with you guys on the I Love CVille Network, a show presented by Yes Realty Partners. I have seen this brokerage move mountains for their clients. Yes Realty Partners, online at yesrealtypartners.com. Whether you're buying or selling real estate in Central Virginia, Yes Realty Partners, a brand, a team, a name you can trust. Judah Wickower is the director and producer of the program. Judah Wickower, I hope you have a three-shot ready to go, because I will most certainly weave a man that has become a known commodity in Charlottesville and Central Virginia into the program. Judah Wickower, a couple days ago, there was a prospective tenant that walked into our headquarters, and this prospective tenant said, "You are Judah. I watch you on the I Love CVille show. You do a great job. May I please have your autograph?" Judah Wickower.
Did you really?
Literally, Judah Wickower said.
Is he making that up?
He didn't know how to respond to that.
Is he making that up?
He didn't know how to respond.
Is he making that up?
Ask Judah. Do we have a three-shot ready to go, Judah Wickower? Okay, let's weave you on a three-shot.
Why can't you?
Camera first. Studio camera first for Keith Smith, the star. And then Judah Wickower, one of the co-stars.
Judah's the star here, right? As I refer to him in my posts is in capitals, the Judah Wickower, right? This is easy for me and you to sit here and go blah, 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 blah. He's the guy that's got to do all the work.
He's moving the cameras around. A couple clicks of a mouse sitting in 72-degree temperature on a $500 leather chair on an Apple computer. I mean, the man's got...
With a sweater on.
Yeah, let's talk about from a challenging job perspective. Paid very well over here. We love Judah. We love three-shot Judah Wickower. Did she not walk in and say, "You're Judah Wickower"?
She did. That part was true.
And did she not walk in and say, "I watch you on the show"? Did she not say that, Judah Wickower?
Something we fell a little short on the.
The autograph may have been a bit embellished.
A bit.
Oh wow! Look at that.
Keith Smith's got data, Judah.
No, I just looked for the first time the new 7-day, new actives, new and pendings. You know what the new actives for the last 7 days going back went to?
What?
77.
What do you make of that?
I think the market is kind of coming in a little, I don't know, to be honest with you, but I think the market is coming into the little bit of the early summer modes. We were running 120, 130. We never really got much above 130 new units a week, new listings a week. We're now down at 77. Pending is at 88. So we're kind of getting back to where we were prior to the beginning of the year, where things started picking up on actives, and actives were coming a little bit higher than pendings. But we are now down to 77 new homes on the market in the last 7 days, and 88 went into pending. So we're kind of flipping the script back to where we were. So I think that little spurt that we had might be leveling back off again, back down.
Interest rates hit a year-to-date high a few days ago. They were at a January, the last time we've seen interest rates at this level. The bond market uncertain, the financial market's uncertain. Still, homes are trading, about a third of them in the Charlottesville Area Association of Realtors footprint. Cash.
Yeah, it's still holding true.
Ladies and gentlemen, about a third of them cash.
Still holding true. We got 73 that's closed in the last 7 days. We've got 77 that came on, 73 that have sold. I've got 88 that's pending. 76 price changes, and that ratio has been kind of standing due to that. Homes are coming in a little bit higher. I think the market's ready, and they're starting to adjust the price. But I'm just curious, of the 73 solds, how many was cash? And Judah, did I give you enough time for those? Get those slides ready?
Did you send them to me?
No, you got to pull them off my Facebook page. I'll text them. I'll email.
No. He could pull them off your Facebook page.
Yeah, I was looking for them. I just didn't see them.
They're on there. This is one of the posts that I've done.
It was the promo post that he did. Yeah.
I'm learning.
How would you characterize this market? Are we at the point of using the word balanced yet?
No. Well, I've gotten a ton of pushback.
I know you have. That's why I asked you that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love
setting you up right there.
Nice shirt. Thank you
very much.
In certain instances, it's a buyer's market still. I don't know how this 77 is going to impact that. That buyer's market might be slipping back a little bit, But it's all about, look, everybody who's been watching the show, it's always the six things I've always been saying, right? I've always been saying it's a micro market, and it's down to the individual house, the individual street, the individual areas. When you take a look at stuff like Ivy and some of those areas, they're just going to start rocking and rolling. Some of the other areas might slip off a little bit. That's why it's got to be priced right. It's got to have the right features. It's got to have the right conditions. Yeah, I'm looking at the last 73. A third of them were cash. So, we're holding a third cash. But when Judah gets going, I just want to kick the show off with this, and we'll see what folks have to say, and see where Keith and Jerry might take it.
He's about 90 seconds away from having that on screen.
Got it.
I can screencast what he's doing over there.
But
median household income, $125,800 is the AMI, or is the median family household income.
Correct.
$125,800. Estimated home price, you have some fantastic data if you put 5% down, 10% down, 15% down, 20% down. Ladies and gentlemen, the unaffordability index is at an all-time high in the car footprint.
First slide is up.
First slide is up.
First slide is up. Judah, look at you. Judah, you're awesome. Anybody ever tell you you're awesome?
Tom Powell, welcome to the broadcast.
So-
Founder of the Toy Lift.
So the key assumptions. So what's really important for everybody's looking at, if you don't mind, Judah, keeping that up a little bit longer than normal, right? There's so many different factors, right? If your credit score is higher or lower, right? Your debt to income is different, and so forth and so on. But what you're looking at on the key assumption side, which would be at least I'm looking at on the left side on the screen, it might be on the right side. The median house income is 125. I've been asked this question: what the heck is available, single-family detached in Albemarle County for that type of area median income household? The national average is 714 on credit, right? The debt to income national average is 40, and most folks have some sort of student loan or car loan or something like that. So it's thousands. So those are
Most folks have $1,000 of debt out there?
That is industry, that is national averages.
That's $1,000 a month.
That's a month number.
A monthly payment of $1,000.
So when you calculate all that in and you go do your mortgage magic, basically depending on your down payment you're paying, right, anywhere between 5 and 20%, which makes a huge difference, right? You're running about 375 to 550. That's kind of the point that you have to be to hit that 40% AMI. Now, some people are comfortable to go a little further than that, right? You can do with 42 or 45 debt to income ratio, which means you're spending more money on your house. What you really want to get to is about a third, right? I don't know anybody that does that. It's an extremely difficult task to hit particularly. But if you go to the second slide, Judah, why this matters, right? This is as of the 28th is when I did it. It's not as of today, but I'm looking at it. Nothing's really changed. We've got 180 single-family detached homes available in Albemarle County. Thank you, brother. Albemarle County, that's existing and new construction. There's only 31 homes are available in that range. So that means there's only 17% of the homes that are available that meet that criteria, right? So, of course, you could be making more money than the area median. You also could be making less, which makes that number even worse, right? You can have a higher than a 714, and you can have a better debt to income ratio, and maybe not have any monthly student loans on it. So I don't want this to be
this is a good baseline.
100%. I don't. We looked at national, and this is just not me. I ran this past a couple of loan officers and say, hey, does this make sense? So, at the end of the day, we don't have an affordable housing crisis in here. We have a housing affordability. And by the way, nationally, that 17% is about 25%. So different jurisdictions have different AMIs, right? Different so forth and so on. It's usually about 20, it's going to be closer to 25% of what's available that the area median income buyer can afford. So we're below that, on that. So, you know, it's impactful. It's why I think we do what we do and we talk about what we talk about. But I wanted to kick the show off with that and see if anybody has got any feedback or questions.
Nicholas Erpy, jump in the conversation. Thank you for watching the show, Nicholas Erpy, the CMO of Emergent Financial Services. Roger Voisinay is watching
Roger.
the show.
Good, Roger.
Roger Voisinay is a good man. Barbara Bosick watching the program.
Hey, Barbara.
Barbara is a fantastic
Oh,
realtor.
hey, we just jumped to 80.
80,
Went
what?
from 77 to 80 since you started. Look at this, Jerry. Since you started talking, we went from 77 to 80. We got 80 new homes on the market.
80 homes on the market, ladies and gentlemen.
Literally, that just jumped since we last checked.
And the car footprint, 80 active units.
80 active homes for sale in the car footprint. We're still at 88 on pending.
Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. That puts things in perspective. Rob Neal, let us know what you think. Lonnie Murray, jump in the mix. Yonna Smith watching the program. Yonna's the best. Jessica Lilly watching the program. Cully Baggett, the real estate developer.
Honey,
Logan Wells Claylow.
I love you, honey. We're doing great.
Should we do APV for Forrest?
You can do an APB for us if you want. So as I was rolling out the door, we're getting some work done on our home. And that,
Not just work, significant work.
We are putting a, for all intents and purposes, we'll call it a 2-bedroom apartment. It's really a 1-bedroom apartment with a flex room that can be turned into that in our basement for my mom and dad to move into, which we're super happy and blessed to do. It kind of goes to this conversation we're having, right? About where they can afford. We're blessed to be able to do a multi-generational home, but we're in the middle of installing a new driveway, retaining walls, and all this stuff. And unfortunately, the excavator left the gate open as I'm rolling out the door. And anybody who has a hound will know, and anybody who lives in Lake Monticello will know, we have kind of a huge deer population there, and that dude split.
Forrest, the dog.
They just, and the last time he did this, he ran for 3 days chasing deer, and that's just what a hound's going to do. And so.
How'd you get him the last time back home?
Same exact way. What I hope happens this time. We have all the information on him, and it was done running and dropped down in front of somebody's house, and we had a kind person call us, and we went, picked him up, and he just looked at me and went, "Hey, Dad, how you doing?"
Yeah. If you see Forrest the hound dog out there, the beloved Smith canine, please contact Yonna or Keith Smith. Forrest the hound dog is out for a jaunt around Fluvanna County and the Lake Monticello area, and we want Forrest returned to his parents, Keith and Yonna, because they adore this canine.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
So,
Absolutely.
great work you've been doing. I've been tracking it on apartments and so forth and so on.
Thank you.
So, great stuff. I got asked a question yesterday, and I would love to see your read on it.
Please.
Right. So, Fluvanna County
Okay.
has, we've been hovering for the last decade somewhere around 10,500 rooftops.
10,500 in Fluvanna County.
And it really hasn't changed much in the last decade.
Okay.
You know, few one way or the other. You know, Lake Monticello was technically built out a decade ago, right? There's a couple of new construction. So I got asked the question, well, we'll hold it. If we're not adding any more rooftops, why is the traffic on 53 getting worse?
Well, I could tell you why.
I would love your read on it.
Because the owners of said rooftops, the longer they stay in those rooftops, the older their kids get, and the more likelihood those kids become vehicle drivers.
Okay, I'll give you...
So I have two sons. Our oldest is 7. The longer he stays in that house, the more likely he's going to get dad or mom's hand-me-down vehicle and starts terrorizing Ivy Road.
You know what? I didn't think about that. That's the reason I wanted to ask you.
It's an extra vehicle. That's a lot.
That's not the answer that I was thinking.
So one extra kid that's driving on 10,500 rooftops is an extra 10 grand cars.
Except Fluvanna County, and the average age of a buyer right now is 57, and these are more boomers, and most of that, I think, is already
The average age of the buyer in Fluvanna County is
no,
57?
no, nationwide.
Yeah, Fluvanna County, that average age is not 57.
Oh, I bet you it's higher than that.
No way, Jose. I'd be willing to
Well,
do
nobody
a prop
knows.
bet.
Nobody knows. It's impossible to tell.
My friend, what's happening in Fluvanna County is the middle-class younger family is being gentrified out of Almoro and Charlottesville because the cost of inventory of product is too expensive, and they're moving to the lake.
No, they're not. They're now bypassing. So my answer to that question is they're bypassing that because I've got about a half a dozen young couples that are trying to buy homes in Lake Monticello, and
In the $300,000 to $500,000 range.
100%, and they can't afford them, so they're going out to Buckingham. So what's really happening is, in my opinion, is the areas outside of Lake Monticello, like further into Fork Union and into Buckingham, because you're starting to see some new construction happen out in that area. Not a lot, but some of it. And what you're doing is they're traveling through 53 to get in. It's the same problem that 29 is going to have with these, in Greene County, with these 2,000, 2,500, if depending on how you count them, new construction units. All of them are traveling by mostly into Charlottesville. But it'd be interesting. Carr, for whatever reason, won't do this, but I would love to see somewhere in the MLS features that we can at least do some sort of buyer profile in it, so we would have some data about exactly who's coming in and who's coming out. We rely on national stuff. The Weldon Cooper Center might be able to help out a little bit.
So how did you answer? Why is traffic on 53
So
picking
my
up?
answer to that is the buyer you're talking about is not buying in Lake Monticello. The buyer who's buying in Lake Monticello is more the empty nester, right? And they're moving. I just can tell you what I'm looking at and what we're working on. Most of the people that are buying over there are exactly that. It's a split down the middle at the worst case scenario.
What do you think, Gary Palmer?
But they're moving further away. The problem is they got to drive through 53 to get there.
Which ain't easy.
Which ain't, well, it's not what like it used to be. I mean, my trip from my house into the studio hasn't changed in decades.
From the acres in Lake Monticello to downtown Charlottesville, what is that, 37 minutes?
Oh, I can do it less than 30 minutes. I can get from my house to the parking garage in about 25, 26 minutes.
Okay.
Exactly. But I also leave to come here and do the show.
At opportune time.
After 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right? So, I'm not traveling in at 7 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning. But, when you got a majority of a county working in Charlottesville, and what's happening is these other areas out there are starting to grow. They're also coming in on 53. You're going to see 29 improving it. But anyway, I was asked that question. I wanted to see what your read on it. I didn't think about, right, because I haven't thought about a two
Kids.
and a half. I haven't thought about a 2.5-year-old in forever. I haven't thought about a teenager in forever because I'm a boomer, right? And I'm of a certain age. And I haven't thought about that, but that's a great perspective.
Neil Williamson watching the program. Neil Williamson says, I believe the kid driving era is likely an 8-year term.
Yeah.
What does he mean by that?
So
He
what
says,
he's
I believe the kid driving
So-
era is likely an 8-year term.
Yeah, so think about it like they've turned 16, 17 years old, they get a car, then eventually going to go to college.
So they stay at that household for an 8-year
Yeah,
window driving a car?
Yeah, that's what that means. In my
Okay.
opinion, that's what
Is that what you mean there, Neil?
Yeah. So that doesn't have a long-standing timeline. The boomers that are coming in will until they move on. But yeah, so it's an interesting.
He also adds this, I agree with you and Keith, the increased traffic is due to more housing opportunities combined with less job opportunities in outlying counties.
Yeah.
And Neil Williamson's going to be sitting in Keith's seat on Friday as Keith and Yonna head to celebrate an anniversary in the Caribbean.
Yeah, we're going to celebrate year number 39. So those of you out there that know Yonna, pick up the phone and call her and go, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
39 years
39
married to
years.
this man,
We've been-
39 lucky years.
We've been together for 40, married for 39, worked together every day for 39. Neil, it was good to see you the other day at the event on Wednesday. So anyway, I was asked that question. I just thought that would be a great thing to toss your way and see what you read on it.
Kevin Yancey watching the program, he says there's also a small swath of Goochland County surrounded by Fluvanna County, Keith.
Thank you. That's exactly right. So that's what's happening. So that's like from help me out, Kevin, Columbia, right? Going towards Richmond, you're starting to see some new construction happen over that way. But that's what they're doing. They're traveling to Richmond. You know, we've been talking about this for decades, that Richmond and Charlottesville is going to come together, and they come in from different perspectives. You still got people coming from Kevin's neck of the woods over the hill to work here in Charlottesville. I don't know how much of that you're seeing these days. But I just thought that was a really pretty cool question to ask. You know, if we're not building any more developments, why is traffic increasing? Didn't think about your perspective, but that actually makes sense.
Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts. Put them in the feed. We'll relay them live on air. This question's come in. Do Keith and Jerry think that the households will become less car-centric soon? I don't see that happening.
No.
I know people like to push that narrative, but folks.
Yeah, you know, look, we talked about this when in the height of COVID, right? And everybody was talking that the world has changed, right? And that everything is going to be remote. And it's really kind of flipped the script on that. There's some hybrid. There's a lot of hybrid here, but most people are going into the office again, right? Most people are required to come into the office again. You know, we're an in-person, touchy-feely look at each other's species. That's how we conduct business, right?
Keith's a hugger.
I'm a hugger.
Keith walks into the studio. He's a big-time hugger.
I hugged you.
You did. I know you did.
Yeah, I'm a hugger.
I
like to hug.
I hug. I don't hug everybody, but I hug you.
Thank you.
I'm not much of a hugger.
I'll appreciate it if you keep your hands up above my waist next time.
Jim Duncan is not a hugger.
Jim Duncan is not a hugger.
He's not a handshaker either.
He's not a handshaker.
He's not a toucher.
You might get a fist bump out of.
You get a fist bump out of Jim Duncan?
You might get a fist.
When's the last time you got a fist bump out of Jim Duncan?
I don't think I've ever got a fist
okay,
bump. But you know, God love him, and talk about rock stars in our industry. You know, Jim is definitively a rock star.
Absolutely, and also a fellow cyclist.
He is a fellow cyclist, but he is, I think, a few years younger than me and much better at it than I am.
Kevin says we're too spread out to be car-centric. Elected officials in Nelson County, Orange County, Charlottesville, and Albemarle watching right now.
Too spread out to be car-centric.
He says the region is too sprawled to be car-centric. I think
that
mean,
makes
frankly,
it car-centric. Right,
no, to be de-car-centric.
Oh, okay,
to not be car-centric.
Okay, got it.
I apologize, Kevin, I misread. To not be prioritizing cars.
Yeah. It's not prioritizing. It is what it is. You know, you need to get to work, and how you're going to get to work is you know, to drive. I mean, it is what it is. We joke around all the time. It's you're going to fly until you can qualify, and that's not too far off from the reality.
I'll ask this question. You reference some of the content we've been highlighting on the I Love CVille show about multifamily development that's coming, apartment development. When do we start making the argument that multifamily and apartments are soft and getting overbuilt?
We made that argument 2 years ago, right? If you listen to the show, we made that argument 2 years ago that we're overbuilt.
Yeah. Second year's about to move on grounds at the University of Virginia.
But you're overbuilt in multifamily in a very specific product type. And that product type is? The
multifamily? Luxury?
No, the luxury end of it.
They're all using the term luxury now, though.
They are using the term luxury, but have you ever walked through any of these projects?
Oh, they're very nice.
Yeah, and they're in the upper echelon of it. The only apartment building that I know of that is for the 60% AMI buyer is the one at Colonial Circle, right?
Fluvanna County.
I'm sure there's other ones. But just to put that in perspective, you know, that's a $1,250 a month nut for a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. And you start getting to 3 bedrooms, you know, they're not quote unquote cheap, in my opinion, on that end of it. But you start taking a look at these luxury apartments, you know, they tailor to the Keith and Yonna, the boomers. I've sold my house in New York. I sold my house in Northern Virginia. I got a pot full of cash, right? I can't find anything because there's nothing to buy, and I want to be in a specific location, so I'll just rent a luxury apartment for a year. right? Live in a luxury apartment for a year, put my stuff in storage, and I wait for because these are clients we have, and we'll wait for a product type to come. And if they're not happy, they'll just live in the apartment complex. But I got chastised for this, calling 2 years ago that we're overbuilding apartment complexes, and we're overbuilding a very specific type of apartment complex. And what do you follow? Follow the money.
Yeah.
And the money's dried up.
Well, the multifamily, the apartments that are coming online now have been in the pipeline for a period of time.
100%.
They just happen to coincidentally being delivered all at the same time. Coincidentally and unfortunately for the developers, coinciding with second years being required to live on grounds at the University of Virginia, and frankly coinciding at a time when there's a glut of that type of stock.
So I'm a living example of this, right?
The developer, Lloyd Snow-Colo,
lost $17 million, everything we had, because the run-up, so these projects you're talking about, some of them have been in the pipeline for a decade, right? And so what changes in 10 years? What changes
Everything.
in 5 years? Everything.
Yeah.
Everything changes.
the market.
Everything changes. And so now you're taking a bet on what that market's going to be like because it takes so long for projects to get approved. And coming out of COVID, and
Money was cheap.
unfortunately, we do this as an industry or as a government or a controlling. Sometimes some stuff that has become easy to get approved, that's where everybody kind of gravitates to. So the definition of easy isn't 1 year or 2 years. The definition of easy is 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years, right, on it. Well, that's what happened. Everybody started jumping into it, right, into the pulling cookies out of the cookie jar, and all of a sudden we had rebuilt. Literally, I had some of my affordable housing folks that I work with all upset with me because I'm saying multifamily is done, and that was 2 years ago. You're not going to see any more projects come, unless they're very specific, laser focused. A prime example is the Violet Crown, right? We talked about.
Do you want to talk about the Violet Crown?
Oh.
Jeff Levine said, "Peace out, Charlottesville."
Yeah, but we talked about this when it first came up.
You said it didn't pencil out.
I said it didn't pencil out, right? It's not going to work. And the real question is, what the hell's going to happen to it?
I talked about this. I tried to somewhat bully Judah into a prop bet yesterday in the I Love CVille show, and he saw through my shenanigans.
Well, I'm dumb enough to take one, so.
Take Violet Crown, the movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
The lease has 19 months left.
Yep.
The operator of the movie theater does not own the real estate.
Yep.
The team that owns the real estate is actively shopping the real estate to developers.
Sure.
The operator has 19 months left. Is the operator going to stay in that location or continue operating this business if we put the over-under at 19 months from now? Knowing the movie theater is clearly in third place in the Charlottesville and Albemarle market. First and second place, Alamo and Fifth Street Station, and Regal and Stonefield, right? Regal's the Stonefield? Yeah.
So when was the last time you were at a movie theater?
Years.
Yeah.
It's years since I've been to. I'd have to ask my wife that question. It's probably been at least 2 years since we've gone to a movie.
Us pre-COVID. And we used to go to movies all the time. We're big movie fans, right? So two things have happened to that end of the industry. One was COVID, right? The second is it changed, right? The cost of putting a decent,
We did 5 TVs. One of them was surround sound with installation costs at our house, and it was under $3K.
Yeah. There you go.
One of them, 80-inch television, and it was installed over a stone fireplace.
And I know a little bit about the industry because my daughter's in it, right? And the whole industry is moving away from the theater thing to the in-home.
Direct to streaming.
100%.
Yeah.
In-home content. So all these things have kind of stacked up. That's kind of...
So what happens to a movie theater on the downtown mall that has no movie theater operator?
So my question is not the movie theater. What happens to the physical structure, right? What's going to go there if it goes out? If we're not going to do an apartment, which we all knew that wasn't going to happen, it's not going to be a movie theater. Are we now going to have a vacant structure in the downtown mall?
I've said this could be the Dewberry Hotel all over again if we're not careful.
1987, when I got here, half of downtown mall was boarded up. So, you know,
I mean, do the city councilors that are watching the program now, are they aware of this? And
They
you
may
have
be
two of them watching the program.
They may be aware of that, but Jerry, what
Well,
influence?
the developer wanted, I mean, he wanted he wanted everything. He wanted tax abatements.
Yeah.
He wanted extra height. He wanted extra floors.
And you know what?
He wanted parking.
Because he's trying to get the math to work.
Of course, that's
Right,
why.
right.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
math isn't going to work, and he says, peace out, and we're done. You know, look, I think from my perspective, if something would have gotten built there's enough people that want to live on the downtown mall area, depending on the unit count, that it probably would have worked, right? But that whole luxury apartment ecosystem nationwide, it's just done. And, you know, I think there's a couple of, I mean, we're not in the room, right? So we don't know exactly what's happening here. I'm just looking from the outside in. My question is what's going to happen with that structure, right? Are we going to have an expansion of the code, right? Is that
Code building.
Is that where we're going?
I don't see that happening.
I don't know.
I got some insight into that.
Yeah. Well, I don't mean actual code expanding, but does that turn into a co-sharing workspace, right? Or does that turn into something else? Or does the city buy it and make it public space? Who knows?
Please, dear God, city councilors, don't buy this building.
Yeah. Well.
We don't need Charlottesville City owning real estate on the downtown mall.
Yeah. I don't. I think they've got enough on their plate.
Neil Williamson says, for what it's worth, there are two old movie theaters that are and were Gold's Gym and a trampoline park.
Yeah.
Gold's Gym was a movie theater. Gold's Gym is now vacant and has been vacant for an extended period of time.
Yep.
As Corin Capshaw and Alan Taylor at Riverbend Development figure out a plan for the old Kmart site, the old Gold's Gym, and goodness gracious, do I miss that Little Caesars inside Kmart. That crazy bread and that rectangular pizza was so delicious.
Please don't do that.
So tasty.
That is so offensive to me.
I love the crazy bread.
No.
You didn't love the Little Caesars crazy
No.
bread? Judah, you're a crazy bread?
No.
Pizza, Judah. Pizza.
No. Maybe a great commercial.
Judah has no idea what I'm talking about over here.
Yeah.
3-shot Judah Wickhauer. Look at his
Save us, Judah.
her perplexed face.
Yeah.
His
So
perplexed
what-
face.
so-
the trampoline park is still active as a business.
So
I think it's called Jump.
So you've
the
got a
trampoline
magic
park.
wand.
Did we 3-shot you? Are you showing your perplex? You don't know the campaign Pizza?
I vaguely remember it from decades ago.
It's
Still
a little bit
active.
like the Roman guy,
Julius
right?
Caesar.
Like,
Pizza.
pizza.
The
Yeah,
crazy bread, the rectangular pizza.
Yeah.
Let me ask
I
you
know the
this
guy.
Goodness gracious.
I was
Tough
thinking of
room
the
right here.
Noid.
Tough room.
What I appreciated the reference. It's the pizzas. Anyway. So what would you do with that space, Judah? You have a magic wand. What would you do with that space?
We're talking about Violet Crown.
Yep.
What would I do with that space? That's a tough one. I mean, who's gonna? Are we saying if it
You got a
doesn't?
magic wand. You can
Magic wand.
Money's not an issue. Zoning's not an issue. What does that turn into? Magic wand.
That's an interesting question.
He's asking you for an answer.
I know.
Okay,
Put me
Jerry,
on
you
the
got a
spot.
magic wand.
Judah taking running a mile to do the 100-meter dash over there.
So sorry, I don't have an immediate answer.
Okay.
I would make it into a.
You don't need to apologize for anything.
I'd make it into like a mini version of the Mall of America. How's that?
The Mall of America.
I don't know.
No, well, didn't mean to put you on the spot. Jerry.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's a talk show.
It is a talk,
It's a talk show.
but we're supposed to talk. He's supposed to work.
It's part of the talk
So tell me what you're going to put in it.
I
Or
mean-
somebody from the feed. What do they think? it
Viewers
should
and
be
listeners,
done?
what should go there?
There
Juan
you go.
Sarmiento watching the program. He
There you
says,
go.
for your information, the Goochland drive-through is now for sale. He's talking about
The dri-
headwinds.
You're talking about the drive-in.
The Goochland Drive-In movie theater.
Yeah, you said-
Did I say drive-through? Drive-in movie theater. Yeah. Yeah, that's for sale, and I did see that Juan Sarmiento. That shows again another indication of the headwinds that brick and mortar movie theater business is experiencing.
Well, it's kind of a little bit like my industry, right?
I mean, Violet Crown is perfectly situated for housing. The problem is how do you get it to pencil out?
Well, that was the whole event that we had on Wednesday, at Carr talking about what's the subsidy that's required. And look, a little shout out to Greenwood Homes, right? They showed up to the
Thank
fight.
you, Dan Pettit. He said I'm wearing a nice shirt. This is a Roback. Thank you, Dan
Very
Pettit.
nice. They showed up to the fight and is bringing $65,000 worth of cash to the table to make transactions.
Is this on Berkmar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
8 or
Victoria.
9 units coming on Berkmar
It's 8.
with a price point with a 2 in front of it.
260, 275.
Yeah.
260 for the 2 bedrooms, 270.
Some subsidy from Albemarle County.
No subsidy. For
Are you sure about that?
100%.
Okay.
Not 100%.
Now,
1,000%.
the Carr Foundation is fundraising to cover closing costs.
100%. At the moment.
I wasn't in the room, but I had my eyes and ears in that room.
So we're blessed. We were able to get, we meaning the Land Trust, an $800,000 grant from Virginia Housing, which we're able to use to help offset the closing costs as the Land Trust. But Greenwood showed up, right? These are 300 cost to build, bricks and sticks and dirt, the $325,000 units that we're selling for $260 and $275. So they're literally, we're buying them for that and selling, and they're bringing that cash to the table. Plus, we're bringing about $20,000, meaning the Land Trust, to the table. So anyway, you start adding that math up together. It's generally becoming about a 6-figure requirement to produce one affordable.
See, I'm just not a
housing.
fan of subsidies like that.
There is no such. The government, so Jerry, I want to look at the county of Albemarle is absolutely donating $0.
But it's being politicked to start getting in that game. It's being politicked to start getting in that game. In fact, if you read Charlottesville Tomorrow, I have an insatiable appetite for reading, as does Keith Smith and Judah Wickower. If you go to Charlottesville Tomorrow,
have pictures in it for me.
the headline, after years of residents asking Albemarle County Board of Supervisors considering a housing trust fund.
Yeah.
And I know you want that.
What I want.
Neil Williamson says the Violent Crown movie theater isn't the city looking for a space for a low barrier housing shelter. See, what Neil Williamson is doing right now is he's trying to rattle my cage in the comment section of my Facebook page.
How's it going?
Because he knows if he posts the comment, isn't the city looking for a space for a low barrier housing shelter, and he's highlighting it on the downtown mall, he knows how I would respond to that. I do not think a low barrier housing shelter should be on the downtown mall. And Keith and Neil already knows that I feel that way, but he's a cage rattler, and that's what I love about him.
Look at that smile.
Do you believe a low barrier housing shelter should be on the downtown mall?
That's a loaded question, and there is no
Clear cut answer. It's absolutely not.
Yeah, so there's
No.
Yeah, so it would negatively impact the businesses on there, but that's a no-win question, right? Because if I say, right,
If you say hell no,
As
people
an
will throw shade at you.
as an advocate, as somebody who prides himself over the last 4 decades to work within the system to try to make the needle move forward, if I turn around and say, absolutely not, then I just pissed off 50% of the people I work with.
See, I don't mind pissing the people off.
I got
Absolutely
it.
not.
I got it, and if I go and say
Absolutely.
that. Now, if you ask me as a business concern, it doesn't make sense.
It's absolutely not. Vanessa Parkhill, could Violet Crown be converted to some sort of meeting, presentation, event space? As
So-
I recall, each of their theaters is not that big, and she's exactly right, they're not that large.
So here's the great question. So that could be something that, jurisdictions do this, right? They do get into the convention event space thing to bring capital to it. What's our problem in our town? Right.
Hotels?
There you go.
Yeah.
So you can create this wonderful space, but you don't have the hotels to house the folks, right? We're still, depending on who you talk to, thousands and thousands of hotel rooms short just for what we currently have between, the university events, weddings. We're still top 5 wedding destination on the eastern seaboard.
Number 2, actually. Number 1 is Charleston.
We're still number 2?
Yeah, we're number
I
2.
didn't realize that. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So-
Jason Howard watching the program, he says, you know what, Judah and Keith? The Little Caesar slogan was honest. It was hot and ready.
And
Mentioned nothing about taste, Judah and Keith.
100%. They didn't lie to you. Absolutely.
Pizza, pizza.
Pizza. It's a cute little.
I
cute
love
little
it.
commercial.
Julius
But as a
Caesar.
New Yorker, my kind of things get up.
My wife and I and our 2 boys had Vita Nova pepperoni pizza yesterday.
Ooh.
at about 11:15 in the morning. It was
Yeah.
one of those mornings, so then we decided to have 2 Negro Modelos as well.
Ooh.
And then our boys had juices. It was a fantastic morning with our boys. Sometimes a beer at 11:15 a.m. helps the parent out. Kevin Yancey, anything new downtown is facing hurricane headwinds based solely on no readily available consistent parking. It's always been that way, Kev.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
parking's not that bad. For those of us that patronize downtown Charlottesville, the parking ain't that bad.
And those of us are from larger metropolitan areas. This is just the way life is, right?
Yeah.
You know,
I've worked downtown for 17 years.
So
never paid for parking.
So I'll tell
Ever.
you what. Since I'm not an activist, I'm an advocate. What
Thank
I
you.
would advocate for is what I've been advocating for a very long time, is to take a look at the 4 pillars, right? Local governments, for-profits, nonprofits, and the people we serve. There could be a public-private partnership out there where we can leverage some of the private sector, the public sector, not necessarily in dollars, right, but in ability to go ahead and perform. You know, look,
And what capacity
honest-
specifically?
let me get.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get there. I have been on this soapbox for a very long time. If the city could just figure out how to turn red tape into green tape, that alone will spur on that's an incentive to itself, because that is so much money, so much lead time to go ahead and get. So if we can figure out a way to do a clear thing, and I'll tell you, my friend Neil is going to get really, might push back, but I'm going to say something that I was thinking about saying, and I think I'm just going to do it. This is going to be a little high level, but I'm not so sure that the new laws, the profit laws that was established years ago, is actually working. And you're going to say, what the heck are you talking about?
No, I know what you're talking about, but go ahead. Keith, what the heck are you talking about?
There you go.
What are you talking about?
So I can't remember the year, and Neil will correct me on this or provide that for sure. State legislator said, okay, the jurisdictions can't ask the developer for a proffer. And a proffer is, let's call it a gift. I want you to do X, Y, and Z, developer. And if you do X, Y, and Z, we'll approve your zoning. And the intent of that being pulled out was actually genuine, right? As one who's been on the other side of that, you know, it got to the point of blackmail. The problem is that went away, and you have this, the developers don't really know how to approach what they want to do, what they want to offer. The elected officials don't want to ask because it's against the law. So I don't think it actually achieved the goal that it wanted to. I just think it, because I consult for people to try to get projects through. And everybody's like, well, how do we handle this proffer thing, right? Well, you know, the way you handle it is now the developer has to guess what the county wants or what the city wants and start throwing stuff at them. Well, that's not productive. That doesn't get anything anywhere. There should be more of an open dialogue back and forth. But the way the law is written, they can't. You can't, as a county elected official, say, hey, Keith, you know, we really would like you to proffer X, Y, and Z. And the developer's now trying to guess what you're thinking.
Isn't the developer able to throw some money into a housing affordability fund of some kind to optimize the development process?
Well, we're not even talking about that. I'm talking about paying for infrastructure.
No, I get it. He's talking about sidewalks. He's talking about waters.
Water, sewers,
Yeah,
roads.
roads.
Greene County is
Yeah.
a prime example.
Yeah.
Right? They lost $10 million worth of improvement.
And the project still got built.
And it's going through the site plan process, but you know, it's moving forward. Yeah. So you're talking about. So here, I'll give you a prime example. Greenwood could have done that. The number would have been half of what they're bringing to the table.
Greenwood with the 8
So
units
they would have paid
on
in,
Berkmar with the 2 in front of it.
So this is the difference between an activist and an advocate. They reached out to me and said, geez, we really like to make a difference. How does this work? We don't want to write a $29,000 check, I think that's the number, to Albemarle County, because it won't do anything. It doesn't make a difference, right? It's a third of what it takes or a quarter of what it takes to produce it. What can you do? And we spent about a month negotiating stuff back and forth, bringing all these 4 pillars together to the table, and we came up with it. I said, look, here's the reality of it. These developers and builders are not built to sell affordable housing units. They're not structured to do that. We are. Land Trust is, right? We're used to understanding this 10 to 15 to 20 to 1 ratio and putting the time in, because that's where our commitment as a land trust is, to go ahead and do it. It's a lot of work to help somebody get from this point to a set of keys. It is an unbelievable amount of work, multiple times more than it is in a normal transaction. Developers and builders are just not wired that way. They're structured very differently. So my argument to them, frankly, is you're going to pay this money anyway, right? Somehow or another, you're going to pay it. So why don't we donate it, which is what they're doing. And this is a huge step forward. And they've got it. They got 100 more units, Jerry, to come up that they're in on and doing it, because they realize it's the cost of business, frankly, to go ahead and do it. But they showed up to the fight. If they just would have wrote a $29,000 check, it really wouldn't moved the needle.
Neil Williamson shares content from the Free Enterprise Forum. He is El Presidente of the Free Enterprise Forum. It's in the comment section of my personal Facebook page.
A really great
He makes a Princess Bride reference. That's one of Judah's favorite movies, is it not,
nice.
Judah?
Oh, yeah.
That's a great movie.
It's a great movie. If you want to learn about what Keith is talking about, the headline, this summer's blockbuster, Return of Albemarle Proffers. It's a link that's in the comment section of my personal Facebook page.
I did not know he wrote that before I went through my little proffer speech, but...
Mustache Dan Pettit says, make Violet Crown a grocery store. A grocery store.
So you're thinking like a Whole Foods with its own parking
It's like,
lot.
look, Reed's
underneath
closed.
Yeah. Do you see that business being viable there?
I don't see the grocery store business being viable.
Yeah,
I think the grocery store business and the
You don't have
movie theater brick and mortar business are going the way of Fred Flintstone's foot-pedaled and powered vehicle and the dodo bird.
So
Is the dodo bird still around?
I think that, you know who would know that?
Judah Wickower.
Judah Wickower.
Is the dodo bird extinct, right? The dodo bird?
It is extinct.
It's
There
extinct.
you go.
How about Fred Flintstone's foot-powered
So
automobile?
Also extinct.
Yes. So my reference
Unless
was on
you're a
point.
kid.
I don't
So
know.
my
My
reference
first
was on
car,
point.
the first car
That's funny, Judah.
the first car I owned had so much rust holes on the bottom of it that you could have done
You
that.
could see to the asphalt.
You can see to the asphalt. But back to the what this has created, this law, is nobody's showing up to have a conversation, because the problem with this is it now has to be changed because it's a Dillon Rule state.
And you know what the problem is? You know what the problem is, right? You know what the problem is, Judah?
I think
It's called
let's hear it.
government interference. It's government interference.
I got it. But
The government tries to do things
Okay.
for what it thinks is the best for the community.
Sure.
And when the government gets involved, it thinks it's doing things positively,
Yeah.
but in retrospect, it's called interference.
yeah. So let's be clear. I'm a private sector guy, been a private sector guy, still believe in it, but I am a realist, and I'm also understand the rules to go through it. This is like me and you trying to negotiate a commercial transaction, and you won't talk to me. Well, so then I just got to keep on throwing stuff at you. And,
I'm going through that right now.
yeah, well, that's not the way it's supposed to work. But
Wise man once told me, hey, this is a phone and you can talk on it.
it's amazing, right?
You don't just have to communicate via text.
It's amazing.
When you're doing $1 million deals, can we have a conversation?
So-
Can we have a conversation?
Yeah, to use an old thing I used to talk about movie theaters, used to see and think,
That's going to get me in trouble.
yeah, I know that, yeah. I'm going to try to say
Can we have a conversation?
yeah,
Right? Why can't we talk?
Yeah.
Can we meet in person?
yeah,
It doesn't have to be via text.
yeah. And it doesn't have to be say the fancy word. I can't.
Controversial?
Thank you. No, confrontational.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't have to be.
Negotiations don't have to be confrontational.
It doesn't have to be an us and them thing.
Right.
Look, what's the best result of a negotiation?
Just finding common ground. The best deals I've ever done are when both parties left the closing table feeling a little stung.
There you go. That's what I was about to say.
Both leave feeling a little stung, you know it was a good deal.
When there's too much of a one-sided thing,
Yeah.
it's very difficult.
And
to
you know,
get.
oftentimes the parties in retrospect realize that it was a good deal.
100%.
Maybe not in the moment, but in retrospect, they're like, you know what, that wasn't a bad deal.
You know, what we do for a living is more emotional than anything.
That's why I like the commercial side.
Well, I can tell you I've done enough commercial deals that...
Residential's extremely emotional.
I don't know about that, man. I won't go into specifics, but I just did a commercial deal that almost fell apart over $5,000. And we're talking multi-million-dollar transactions.
Well, that's when you just like say...
I wrote a check.
Yeah.
It literally was what I
You say
did.
it's
That's literally
$5,000.
what I did. I sat down in front of these two, and it was an intercompany sale. It was a sale from one company to another, and it blew up over $5,000 worth of furniture. And these people know me. I pulled out a checkbook, which I didn't even realize I had. Actually, I have one check in my wallet that Yonna lets me hold on to. I swear to God, I really do.
I know that's 100% true.
And I pulled it out, and I wrote a $5,000 check, and the people in that, everybody started laughing and busting my chops, and they go, yeah, that's no good. Can we call Yonna?
Neil Williamson, proffers are a welcome stranger tax that funds the infrastructure that should be considered and paid by localities. Developers are putting funds at risk to make their comprehensive plan dreams a reality.
So I get that. The problem with the system is established right now is nobody's talking to one another. Nobody's picking this phone up and having a conversation. If Keith and Jerry are trying to redevelop the Violet Crown thing, right? Okay, city of Charlottesville, because I got to go through them. I got to get approval through them. And it's a reality, right? Okay, what can we do to work together? Right? What can we do to work together? You don't want it vacant, right? I think I've got a good opportunity to do here. I'm willing to go ahead and do this. Let's work together as a team to produce something. That's called advocacy, right? So we shall see. I hope it does not end up vacant. I
think city council.
I think I got a pretty good business brain. If I had the money, I don't know what I would turn that into.
The best idea I've heard so far is some kind of version of a convention center there. The problem
where
with,
are they going to stay?
The problem with they're building a hotel next to the Omni, and we're starting to get hoteled a little bit more. There's a new hotel coming on Pantops as well. So hotels are becoming a bit more prolific than they once were.
You know
I
how
do
long-
want to highlight that a convention center is being built by the Darden School.
Yeah.
So we are getting a new convention center already, but having one downtown makes some sense.
And
I do want to highlight that Violent Crown movie theater location is extremely cavernous and does not have windows. So that might be one of the drawbacks of the convention center. I also want to highlight this, that I do not think a movie theater will be operating in that location when this 19-month lease expires.
oh no.
And I'm comfortable
Even if
sitting on that hill.
Even if it's rent free.
Why would it be rent-free?
I don't know. The developer the owner just doesn't want the building vacant, right? You know that. You work in the commercial world. I see this happen all the time. I'll cut you a deal for 6 months, no rent or whatever, because I don't want the building vacant, right? There's nothing more expensive for a building. You know this.
Yeah, I think this particular owner, which at one time was the operator of the movie theater, then the owner of the real estate said, I got to get the hell out of this business. Then they found an operator out of Austin, Texas to operate the Violent Crown movie theater. And then the operator they found out of Austin, Texas to operate the Violent Crown movie theater had to take on a partner. And then the partner and the initial operator out of Austin, Texas had beef. And they're now having a falling out.
Let's go back to your convention center, because we know a little bit about this. We just did the summit for the Regional Housing Partnership. We had 250 people.
Was that at Omni Hotel?
To make your argument
No.
for you, the Omni Hotel was the only
Spot
venue.
downtown.
No.
DoubleTree can handle that. DoubleTree can handle that.
Handle 250.
Yeah, DoubleTree
people.
can handle that.
Multiple rooms, multiple locations.
DoubleTree can do that.
And
Yeah.
handle the catering and
Oh
all
yeah,
that stuff.
DoubleTree can handle
I did
that.
not know that.
Yeah, but Omni downtown has upside because it's downtown, and
That's the
Omni
reason.
just went through a beautiful remodel.
Yeah, we loved it. It was great. They did nothing but kudos to them. Neil was there. He can tell you if it went well or not from a operational perspective.
And Neil highlights that and he's absolutely right, that the occupancy rate for hotels Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is very significant. The occupancy rate for Friday, Saturday, Sunday for hotels is minimal locally.
So you can do conventions
Midweek.
Yeah.
And they're starving for midweek bookings.
Yeah. You know, I haven't really given any thought till I sat here and started talking to you, but
That's not a bad idea. I
that's
just
not a
hope
bad
to
idea.
God it's not the city trying to do this. I hope to God it's not the city
Well,
trying
I
to do
think
this.
what the city would do would contribute in some way, some sort of tax incentive.
But they just said no to Jeff Levine on the tax abatement.
Yeah.
They said, Jeff, no way, dude. And
Well,
then
they-
Jeff
why-
said, I'm
Why
hitting
did
the
they
road.
say no?
Well, I mean, Jeff wanted a lot. Jeff wanted the baby, the bath water, and the kitchen sink.
Yeah. I think they said no maybe because it didn't have enough affordability in it. Or
Yeah, was it tied to AMI? 80% AMI? Yeah.
Well,
It's like, how many units was that? Two?
80% AMI. So
It's about 100 grand.
it depends on how many people are in the house.
About median family household
But
income is 125.8.
Figure 80 to 100, depending on the folks how many folks that are in.
80% AMI is 100 grand for the family household income. How many affordable housing or tied to AMI units, Judah, were in that Violent Crown project? Do you remember off the top of your head?
So I happen to have it in front of me.
10%?
One person is 70,500. Two person is 80,550. 3 persons are 90,600. 4 persons are 100,000. 100,000. So you're ranging between the number of household members in a household between 70 to 100K based on an 80% AMI.
Convention center.
No, I think
Very
that
interesting.
I think that might have legs on it, and maybe it doesn't have the windows.
That's the problem with that.
But it's got the infrastructure in it. Right? You've been to enough presentations.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
It's got all the audio visual.
and it's
It's
got
got the seating.
and it's got the stage set up.
Yeah,
On
yeah.
it, so it actually that might actually make sense.
Please, dear God, don't let the city do it.
I-
Get involved with it.
I don't know what the business model of that is, right? I don't know how that pencils out for an ROI.
Well, the Richmond Convention Center, somebody help me. It's
in the
10% of the units, Judah. I think that is right. I'm
Yeah.
looking at the story.
So the Richmond Convention Center.
Can someone help me? Does that run by Richmond, the city of Richmond?
So it's
Is it a public-private partnership or is it strictly public utility?
no, it's a
Viewers and listeners?
somebody needs to research that because I've just recently came from an event there. It's a not an association.
It's a co-op?
It's a
Is it a
quasi-governmental.
bid? Business improvement district?
Yeah, it's a quasi-governmental. It's like a water and sewer system, right? Hold on a second. You're probably Googling it right now.
No. I'm listening.
Anyway, we're at 11:20.
No, we're totally good. We're
Okay.
totally good. The Greater Richmond Convention Center is managed in partnership with Oakview Group.
Yeah.
Nathaniel Harris is the general manager of
Yeah.
the Greater Richmond Convention Center.
Yeah.
GRCC is a political subdivision of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
Yeah.
governed by a 5-member commission representing local
Yeah.
governments.
So it's like a service authority, right? It's set up as an authority, right? Which is it operates under its own board. It operates the whole thing. It's co-managed. It's managed by a private. So this is what's called a PPEA, right? Public partnership. The actual technology is a education association, or anyway, can't remember what the A is, but it's a public-private partnership, right? Where the public is involved in it.
Alliance.
There you go.
Yeah.
But the private sector is involved in it because the private sector, I don't think there's enough numbers there to make that work. Just think about how much you'd have to turn those convention spaces
Yes.
to make the math work.
I have to grind it.
But that would make sense. A
Yeah.
PPEA between somebody.
Outside of that, the whole structure gets taken down, gets raised. And then-
Outside of that, I would.
Yeah,
agree
you
with that.
just bulldoze it and then use the dirt. The
I
dirt's
tell you
the
what, I
value.
don't know how they were going to convert that into apartments without doing that.
I think he was gonna
Raise
raise it.
Yeah.
Don't you think? I mean, that's your business.
Yeah. But I can see a convention center with the infrastructure that it's structured that you could do that. That actually is not a bad idea.
Keith Smith, Judah Wickower, Real Talk with Keith Smith. What are you doing for the next 2 weeks?
I am.
You're on point today.
Thank you. I am enjoying 2 weeks with the love of my life.
In the Caribbean?
in the Caribbean, do
Working
a
on
little
your
bit of
suntan?
business. Do a little business, work on the suntan. Neil will be sitting in my chair next Friday. Woody's going to be sitting in Woody Fincham the Friday after that. It is dealer's choice, so they get to pick topics and guests. But as I was telling somebody this morning why Yonna and I do this, we work 7 days a week. We look at each other and go, I love you, but sometimes I don't like you. And we need to go away.
I think that's called marriage.
Yeah, well, most marriages don't work with each other every day. And we work with each other every day. Our chemistry, and we're really good at what we do, but we hit these saturation points that we need to reconnect. And that's what we're going to do.
Keith Smith, Judah Wickower, Real Talk with Keith Smith, online at realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. Neil Williamson filling in for Keith Smith a week from today. Woody Fincham, 2 weeks from today. Have no fear, Real Talk with Keith Smith will, what rhymes with fear? That's synonymous with continue?
What rhymes with
We'll
fear?
continue. How's that? Gosh, goodness gracious. We'll continue.
And when I get back, we're going to have some great news.
Some rum.
Yeah, we'll have some rum, but we'll have some great news about the growth of Yes Realty Partners. That's, we haven't quite inked everything yet, but
We got some news with Yes Realty Partners?
we are. Let's put it this way: we are growing.
Yes Realty Partners.
And we're
is growing.
excited about it.
His business is humming. The I Love CVille show up at 12:30, where Kevin Cox, the pedestrian and bicycle activist who has been arrested by the Charlottesville Police Department and has a $1,000 plus vandalism charge hanging over his head for chalking a crosswalk on Elliott Avenue. Kevin Cox is coming in and is going to tell his side of the story
Look at you.
on the I Love CVille show. Ladies and gentlemen, Keith Smith, Judah Wickower. My name is Jerry Miller. So long.
Be kind to the cyclist out there. As a cyclist.
Excellent show.